So, welcome everyone to the headquarters of the FAO, and especially you, the students of the Swiss schools here in Rome. And welcome to our third edition of the Snack the System event. I'm here, I have the pleasure to introduce you to this small session with Hängry Foods. And we have here Ximena, Valentin, and there is Sofia, a team member of them that are out there taking pictures. And so I immediately let you introduce yourself and your company. And the discussion today is going to be about food production, food consumption, with a particular focus on food waste.
So first of all, thank you for inviting us as a very small startup to such a big event at the FAO. We are three food technologists with one vision. We want to make sustainable, convenient, ready-to-eat menus from surplus food. As we know, we all have the basic need for food. And not only this makes us hungry. We are angry at the waste of the valuable resources. 1/3 of all food gets wasted along the value chain. This gets shown us every week as we receive food for our production, which we won't even considering looking bad or something. But Ximena will tell you more about it later. The World Overshoot Day gets closer to New Year from year to year. This year it was already at the 28th of July. As we know, life is very stressful, and we don't have the time to question all our decisions. So when you go and you're hungry, you just take whatever's there without questioning how it got produced. This is why we want to make a sustainable, convenient alternative by producing ready-to-eat meals from surplus food. But where do we get our food from? Ximena will take you on a journey now and tell you where we get it from.
All right. Can you hear me? Yeah, I think so. Let's start off our food waste journey. And let's start it in the fields with the farmers. Swiss agriculture contributes to around 20% of food waste. How? Well, the farmers have to overproduce to compensate fluctuations in the yield and to always provide us full shelves at the supermarkets. In addition, we are very picky. And we tend to always take the most beautiful produce when we go shopping, and the ugly ones, or let's say less beautiful ones, don't even make it to the supermarket. So we take this produce and we make side dishes for convenience menus. But let's continue our journey. Let's go one step further to the factories. Did you know that the food industry makes about 35% of food waste in Switzerland? You might be asking yourself, how? Well, in form of side streams. Let's give you an example. If I'm a soy milk producer, for example, I have the soy milk that I sell, but I have what's left over from pressing the soybeans. This is called okara and is very rich in proteins and fibers. So we take this okara and we make like falafel bowls for convenience menus. But let's take it one step further. Let's go to a place we encounter every day, the supermarkets. I think we all have the pictures in our heads of the containers full of products wasted from the supermarket. But the supermarket, actually, they only account to about 10% of the food waste in Switzerland. The best before date plays a central role in this area, even though the produce are good for far longer than the date says. And if this is not the case, we take the products and we freeze them immediately, or we cook and preserve them. But yeah, the journey is not over yet. Let's end the food waste journey at our households. Everyone contributes to food waste. Around 28% of food waste is produced in our households. And to not neglect this very important area, we have launched a food podcast where we talk about sustainability around food and around the food industry. So yeah, thank you so much for listening. and we're open for questions.
Thank you, Valentin, thank you, Ximena. And maybe I first have a question for our audience. And as it has been mentioned about the overshoot day, I wonder if you know what it is. And if any of you know, please try to answer. If not, maybe I will let you explain a little bit more because it's very interesting what it is. So I guess maybe one of you can explain a bit better.
So the overshoot day is the day where we have used all resources from the year. So the earth can grow only a certain amount of food and everything. So on July 28th this year, we have used like all resources we should use in the whole year till December. So that means like we need more than we should, right? So we...
Yes, exactly.
Okay, thank you. And as they said, of course, we all contribute to food waste in a way. And I was wondering, like you guys in your reality or in your house, what do you think is the ingredient that is wasted the most? What is according to you? And then I guess there are some statistics that they will tell. Yes? Water, somebody else, any other guessings? Fruits?
So I think there's a real a big difference in the region you are, right? So it really depends what your country produces, and often like this gets wasted the most. But we also need to say what is wasting. A lot of it gets becomes pet food and gets used like this, but it's a downcycling, right? We should try to produce it all to human food, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, at least everything we can. You said water. I think water is something that we can definitely be more careful about at home. And I don't know, a lot of people try to, for example, if you cook vegetables and you don't salt them, if you cook them in water, you don't necessarily have to salt them, and then you can use the water to water your plants. So this is a way that you could help save some water. With fruits and vegetables, I think the problem is that we tend to buy a lot, especially if it's maybe like a special sale or something, then we buy way more than we need. And instead of cooking and preserving it or making, something out of it, we tend to throw it away. So I think it's important for us as a consumer to really think about what we need for the week and try not to buy too much. Yeah.
Thank you. And I wonder, maybe a question to you, do you feel like sharing any suggestions related to schools, like to avoid food waste in the canteens, or maybe also the snacks that the students bring to school? Are there any tips or any facts that we should all be aware of?
So I would say, so maybe there are 3 menus available for you as students to eat. But if you want to have all 3 menus available for everybody of you, like you need to overproduce, right? So like the last student who comes still needs to have a choice. So I think it's also better if the chefs say, maybe something is out now because it got eaten too much, instead of always overproduce and then throw it away afterwards.
I think another good option is for the canteen, for example, not to put everything out in the beginning. So if you want something, maybe you can ask if they still have in the back, because as soon as it's in the front, it's not safe to reuse. But if you have it in the back, maybe you can freeze it, and in a couple of weeks later, or in a couple of days later, you can introduce this to another menu and reuse it like this.
Okay, thank you. Would you also guys think about other ways to avoid food waste, maybe at school or at your house? Any suggestions from your side?
And then you say, I don't want it. I don't want it. You don't put it away, but you eat it all.
Yeah, very good. You can make like a pasta salad from it or something else the next day, so you don't need to have like the same dish like 3 times in a row. So very good.
Good idea. Some other ideas?
If you can, you should do compost. So, yes,
Good one.
for your plants.
Do you have a compost at the school?
No, we don't, but we should. But I have one at home, and I think it really also reduces the quantity of waste we produce. And I can see it when we throw away our waste. When we have compost, we have almost nothing to throw away.
That's right. So maybe a suggestions from
Maybe
the
also
students.
implementing a garden at school, because then you learn more about the produce and you could implement the compost. That would be a cool idea.
Yes, and also here are some suggestions.
For example, in the school canteen, don't make it mandatory so anybody can bring the food that we want, so it's not food waste.
Mm-hmm.
Very good.
Did you hear something that you hadn't discussed in your podcast yet, that you could be inspired from?
Yes, for sure.
Bravi. I see some other suggestions here in the first row.
I think that many animals eat many things, and when we don't have or we don't want to eat something, we can give it to animals or other people.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the canteen could ask the students the day before they eat what they want, because often they produce food and we don't eat it, and so it's wasted.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. So they only produce what people actually want to eat and are going to eat. Yeah.
Yes, I think that you need to take only what today I will this and I eat this. Only this.
Thank you, all of you, for your suggestion. I don't know if you have any questions or any points that you would ask to Valentin or Ximena, or if you are interested to hear a podcast on a specific topic, that you could give them an idea and then you could listen to that as well.
I would find it interesting to hear about meat production, because I think we produce much food that we just give to the animals, but we could eat it. And they told us about this last week when they came to our school. And I think this interesting because, if we eat less meat, we have much more resources for ourselves.
That's a very cool topic. I would give that to Sophia. She's in charge of the podcast. We also, what might be interesting in that topic, we invited Christian from Essento. He makes insect foods, and that's also a very interesting alternative, exactly, to meat. So that might be interesting for you.
During the tour afterwards, you might have the opportunity to try some of the insects. They're really tasty. So
They're really tasty, yes.
You really should try. It's better than you think.
maybe you will ask for them in the canteen next week. An hamburger of insects. Any other topics that you feel could be interesting, or a question that you would want to ask to our speakers today? I see here. Yeah.
I ask myself, how do you recycle, for example, meat or fish, things that perish very quickly?
So yeah, with meat and fish, it's a little bit more complicated. They also don't have a best before date, they have a use by date. And with that, you would have to either freeze it the same day that the date is due, and then you can elongate the shelf life for around 6 months, depending on what fish and what meat it is. Or you can cook it the same day, and then you have a new shelf life. So that's an option. And you can obviously cook it and then freeze it at home, and then it's even better. So that's a good option, yeah.
We have a question from here. If you could pass the mic. Thank you.
I think it will be very interesting to hear about how to cook and don't um, yes, waste, food or water or yes, everything.
So the thing is, you need to be creative what you can do with it, you know? Because at home, maybe you look at your fridge and there's a lot of different things, and then you should think, what can I do using that ingredients and not buy new things? So for us, it's maybe a bit easier because I have a chef background. So I used to cook a lot, so I can really like look at the things we have and then make the menus with it, you know, and don't buy new ingredients and stuff. And there you, like, when we make menus, we don't like say it comes with carrots, but it comes with mixed vegetables. So we can really use like all vegetables we have as an example.
And I think if you practice and if you cook a lot, you can find a lot of inspiration nowadays in the internet, and don't be too strict on the recipes. Think about, what you can supplement it with the things you have, and experiment. Just experiment, and then you'll get a feeling for it,
There are a few other questions there to your colleagues.
Yes, I don't know how it is here in Italy, but I know that there are some supermarkets in Sweden which, when there is food that is less beautiful or just is almost going out of the use date, they sell it but at a lower price to waste less food, and that can be good because I know some people that then think, okay, it's a lower cost, we can use it, it's still not bad, and that's good because then you waste a little less food.
Yeah, that's really good. You can save a lot of money. And Switzerland, they do that as well. What I think would be also important is for vegetables, you can judge if it's good or not. But for things that had a best before date, a lot of people don't know that they're still good for a lot longer. So I think that is something very important to teach people a little bit about it. And if you come to our stand afterwards, we have a little game with products, and then you can guess how much longer you can eat it after the use before date is due.
For example, I have here the chocolate, typical from Switzerland, and I could not have guessed how many days you could still eat it after the expiry date. Would you try to imagine, like, once you read it's expired today, in this date, how long could you still eat it? Try to guess. 1 week? Other guess? 1 month? 1 year? Actually, you can eat chocolate for 1 year after the expiry date. And yes, it's very funny, you can try to guess at their desk how long actually you could still.
It is important though that the products are stored correctly. Because if they are exposed to sunlight or a lot of heat, then you cannot go by these dates.
Well, and I don't know if there is sorry.
I have read that insects have more proteins and gives you more energy than even meat. But is this real or was it a fake news?
Christian, you wanna
come.
mic?
Join us.
We have an expert here.
Thanks. I think it's super important that we compare apples with apples and pears with pears. So obviously, if you use dried insects and compare with meat, then insects are better. But if you use fresh insects and compare it with fresh meat, then insects are not much higher. But what we offer at the stand, which you will also have the possibility to try out, those are the dried insects, and they indeed have a protein content above 50%. So obviously that's higher because traditionally meat is around between 19 and 23, I guess. But if you would not dehydrate the insects, then they're also around 19 to 22%.
But it's true, I mean, you need to feed the insects less food. So they produce like more proteins what you feed them, right?
I mean, this is indeed a true element, and this is also what I believe when we are looking into our food consumption, is what needs to go in and what is the quality of the products that need to go in. And I think it is a quite valid question that we should ask ourselves. Are we producing corn and wheat that we feed to animals directly, or are we using side streams? And this is what we are doing at our insect farm, where we use the side stream from food production and are upcycling them with the insects.
And you also need less water to produce them. Thanks.
Less water, less space. I mean, less anything. Yeah.
I have a question for yes, but I think in Italy we cannot buy insect, but here we can, or yes.
All right. So when it comes to legal, this is always a good question. I think we're here at the perfect space at FAO. When it comes to the legal situation of edible insects in the EU, it is actually a fact that now the legal system has changed. There are 4 species of edible insects that are approved that can also be sold in Italy. But this just happened the last half year. So what we have here has been produced according to those legal status. So you are allowed from a legal point of view to eat them.
And where can we buy it? Here or out of the FAO too?
Well, this is a super good question, and I think this is also something where it's important to understand how food systems do work out and how you get into stores. So basically, what we do at Essento, we are selling our products mainly in Switzerland. So if you go to Coop, for instance, there are over 100 stores that do carry our products. For the other European countries, we only offer online opportunities up until now, but we're obviously looking into those possibilities, but it's not that easy to get put into a big supermarket, especially when you're talking about a huge country such as Italy.
No other questions, I guess. Yes. One on the back.
So I saw something. You can reuse the rubbish from the cucumbers to, for example, put them in water and reuse them for your plants because of the minerals, etc. I don't know if it's true.
I think it's true. It goes into the same you were talking about before, like when you cook vegetables, and it's it's a very good idea to reuse those valuables for sure. Mm-hmm. You can also drink the water, and it has a really fresh taste like cucumber. It's also very nice.
Yeah. Nice. I guess there is another question. Oh no. Yes.
Are there any products that we cannot reuse or in some way not recycle?
So yeah, like I said before, you have to be careful with everything that has a use-by date, because there you have a microbiological risk that you cannot see, might not see or taste, and it still makes you sick. So with that, you really have to be careful.
And then you would reuse them like in compost or
Exactly.
like some different side streams.
Thank you. There is another question there.
I have also read that in the Emirates they are making gas line for airplanes out of plants, a special plant that is in the desert. But can we do gas line also with other plants? And yes.
You can for sure do it, but the question is, can you use it like more efficient as human food or something? They're not like used for transport, but you can downcycle them for biogas, yes.
Thank you.
But you can eat all the insects or only a type?
That's also a super good question. So they're estimated to be above 2 million different insect species around the planet. What we do know is that there are about 2,000 species that are being eaten on a global scale. And now, if we look at how many species the EU has authorized, we're talking about 4. And I mean, this is a question also that you can open up to other elements. I mean, there is a huge consumption of potato, grains, and rice, but a diversity in the food makes it really a resilient food system. And I think this is really key, and this is why we're also advocating to have other species authorized. But what you need to consider there with the insects is you need to have a way of breeding the insects. So all the insects that we have at our stand, they're being bred specifically for human consumption. So there is a controlled environment, so they're not harvested out from the nature. And I think this is really a key difference, because what we have established over the last 1,000 years actually is a stable food system that produces safe food. I mean, this is also why we have the best before date and so on, because we want that the food does actually good to us and that does not any harm. And this is also when it comes to introducing new kinds of foods such as insects, we need to consider how do we make new food systems safe so it actually makes us healthy and doesn't make us sick.
Okay, we have time for a last round of questions. So there, oh, you first and then, yeah.
Okay, but why are insects produced only in Switzerland? Sorry.
You really want to buy them, Christian, so put them in Italy.
Well, I mean, it's always a question of the market expansion, what you can do. I mean, to go into new geographical markets, that's an investment that you need to do. And there needs to be enough demand. So it's always for new products, if there are enough customers that say, we want this product, obviously the supermarkets are then going to come and say, hey, we have so many customers that are interested in that product that they will take it on. But this is always a question, especially when we're talking about new products. This is not always that easy. But it's not that we're kind of breaking the speed, but it's really the supermarkets as well as the end consumer that's saying, oh, maybe not yet. But I mean, if you would ask me, it's only a question of time and not if. It's only a question at what point this is going to spread, and this is why we're putting a lot of effort into that.
Okay, thank you. So we have the last question there, and then unfortunately.
I also ask myself, how are the insects treated? Like, do they live in the nature, but in a closed space, or how do you kill them? I don't know, before you eat. Yeah.
Yes. It's actually, so I'm going to answer the question, but if you're interested in getting more details, just hit up the Hängry podcast. This is where we have talked 45 minutes, I guess, about this and many more topics. But to answer your question, this is actually a key element that is important to us. So what we actually did is we did sit together with animal protection agencies in Switzerland, and came up with the rules on how to grow and farm insect properly. So all the insects that we use to make our products are being farmed in a closed space that are given food that is controlled. So it's important that it doesn't contain any pesticides, that it doesn't contain any fungicides, that it doesn't contain any heavy metals. And then it depends a bit on the species. So what we do have at our, what we have in Switzerland is we built the first organic insect farm on the planet. And what you can imagine is a closed room, because what the insects need is they need a proper temperature and a proper humidity, and so we're controlling for that. And with the species that we grow, which is called the tenebrio, which grows in side streams of the flower production, and we do grow them in boxes. And the interesting part about breeding insects is they do like to be with a lot of others. So they're actually made for some kind of mass production. So they grow much better if there are a lot of other insects with them. And then when it comes to the harvesting aspect that you were referring to, which is also super important. And the key element there is that it happens quickly. So what we do is we put them into hot water, and we did the calculation together with ETH. It takes them 0.03 seconds, and then they're being killed. And this is not enough time to transmit a signal of pain. And so that's the best way to do it. So it just needs to happen quickly.
Okay. It's maybe quick question.
So I know that scientists have made meat in labors, but how does it work?
So what they do is they take animal cells and try to make them double themselves to like keep growing, and then like the meat starts to grow, but it's
still in process.
It's still in process.
I think there's a couple of things that you have to think about producing meat like that, because if you eat meat from a regular animal, there's a lot of things around the environment that make to the taste of the meat. For example, what they eat, the water that they drink, and everything. So at this moment, they're not able to recreate everything, but they're trying to do that actually in Wädenswil, where we study. There's a startup that's working on that, and I got the chance to talk to someone like that that works there. So yeah, it's still in development.
But they produce like chocolate that way at our university.
Okay, so thank you so much for all your questions and intervention. I think we all feel very hopeful for the future generation after all these interests that you showed and the great ideas. Thank you very much to Hängry Birds, Valentin, Ximena, Sofia, Christian from Essento. You will have the opportunity now to ask more questions directly to them. Emma on the back will split you in groups, so you can be more efficient in showcasing all these exposition, and we'll see you later. Thank you so much again, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.